Hello and welcome into your 2020 Construction Cloud training. Let's go. First of all, you're going to open a browser. I'm here in Firefox right now, and you're going to enter your URL, your link into the software. And for you, it's likely going to be your company name followed by .2020.io. You're going to sign in. Click that button there. Enter your email address as your login typically. It is case sensitive. Your password, also case sensitive. It automatically brings you into your inbox in the messaging application of the software. You may have an option on your first login to enable desktop notifications. I have them enabled already in my test. You'll see a long bar across this part of the section. Your name will appear in the upper right hand corner. You can click on that. You can log out. There are some other preferences you can have as a user, but that's where you can log out if you like to. To get to other applications, you click on your 2020 menu here. Different users will have other options listed. I'm going to move this window out of my way and open up another window. I'm in the same URL, but I'm logged in now as administrator. And maybe I want to communicate with another user in the software. Well, under direct messages, I have a name here, Ronald's here. Well, if I want to add somebody else, I can click on this and I can open a new chat with somebody else. And I'll just start typing MOL and it pops up Molly, my other user. If I typed HI, each of them have that part of their last name and HI in it, so it shows all of those. You can search anywhere in the field when you're typing that. I'll just click on that. So I've opened a chat to Molly. At the very bottom of the screen, it says write something. So I can say, hey Molly, or whatever else is important. Then I can click send. It tells me that it's sent it. And since I have notifications turned on and I'm still logged in as Molly on my other screen, there's the note that Molly's receiving. Let me go back to Molly's screen, show you that. Now, up here, there's a notification. It says 1. So Molly has one message. I can click on that to see a snapshot of that. But if I also click on administrator here, it gives me the details of the conversation. Hey Molly, and Molly can then write back to the admin, hello, and click send. Obviously, you can always use your emojis and make attachments. Click send. And again, it keeps track of the conversation when things happened also. And it will keep them in perpetuity. All right, so now here's the message I just got back from Molly. The administrator just received from Molly. All right, so I have two conversations going. I can click on either one of them to see the details there. Let's click on 2020 to show our list of applications again. And let's go to accounting. Depending on the permissions you have, you'll see different menu items. At the top, I have advisor. I'm going to go into the chart of accounts right now. How many accounts do I have? Well, over to the right, it tells me there's 157 accounts. But before that, it says 1-80. Well, that's telling me that on this screen, it's showing me 1 to 80, the first 80 records. If I scroll down, I'll hit number 80 at the bottom there. If I hit this button here, it'll take me to the next page. It'll show me 81 to 157. Were there more than 160, I would have a third page. I can use these buttons to toggle between the pages. If I wanted to see a different number of records, I could say maybe I just want to see the first 6. I can edit that number, and it only shows me the 6 records at the beginning. I can go through the pages there, and it's showing me now 6 at a time. If I were to leave this screen, let's do that, and then return, it changes back to my default view with 80 records. If I wanted to see all 157 on one screen, I can just make this number something bigger than 157, maybe 8,000. The system knows there's only 157 records, so it limits me there. But if I were to scroll all the way down, I'd see all 157 records. Okay, so there's a search bar here also. We can come into the search bar and maybe just start typing you want to see a certain type of account. An account with the word cost in it. There are 2, cost of goods sold materials and indirect cost. I can add to that. If I wanted to see other, okay, search where the account is other, changes my search with an or operator in it. It says the account contains the word cost or contains the word other. And now I'm down to 17 records. Let me remove the search that I have in place simply by clicking the little X, and it takes me back to 157 records. Below the search bar, we have some other tools here. We're seeing these already. You may not see them the first time into your software. To the right edge of the search bar, there is a little magnifying glass icon. Hovering over it, it tells me it's the advanced search tool. You'll see right now that has a negative sign in it. If I click on that, it'll have a positive sign telling me there's more. And when I did click on it, it hid the filter, grouping, and favorites buttons. Let me click that again to turn that back on. Each of you have the ability to control that for yourselves. If you're ever not seeing a filter, grouping, or favorite button, go ahead in that search bar and click that magnifying glass. That'll toggle it on and off for you. So how do we use these? The easiest place to start will be at the groupings. You'll see on the screen there's only 4 columns of data right now. Let's keep things very simple. If I click on Group By, I have one option by default here already, Account Type. Well, we have a type column in there. Let's click on Account Type. And now it takes each of the account types and groups them up. And it has a little number next to each one of them telling me how many records appear within a group. We may have account types out there without accounts in them. They don't get a group then. You won't see them in here. But if I want to see my current asset accounts, I can click that. It tells me there's 16, and now I'm looking at all 16 records there. If there were more than 80 records, you'd see the little 1 to 80 icon over on the right there. Okay, the same information is displayed. It's indented a bit to tell me that it's part of a larger group. If I want to remove my grouping, I can simply click the X. I do have other options. If I click on grouping, I have add a custom group. I can get further into it. And now I have a few more fields. Maybe you're in a multi-company environment, you want to see them by company. Maybe you want to see them grouped by the accounts that allow reconciliation. Let me choose that option. And then I have to hit apply. Puts that information up in the top here. Recognize this icon here, this little hamburger icon. It's the same one next to the group by. So it's telling me when I'm in here that this is a grouping that I have set. So I've said group this by allow reconciliation. 154 records say they're undefined. 3 say they're true. Click on one of these accounts to get into the detail of the account. And this is what that's reading. This account has this checkbox marked off for allow reconciliation. We go into the details of what that means in a video regarding setting up your chart of accounts. 154 of the records are marked as undefined. What that means is for these 154 accounts, that checkbox is not marked off. It can't find that condition on these. It doesn't hide the records. We're not filtering, we're just grouping. A filter would hide those records. We'll show you that in a moment. Also want to show you that you can stack up groupings. So, under Group By, we see the checkbox here for Allow Reconciliation. If I now click Account Type, you'll see nothing seems to have changed on my screen. You'll see in my search bar, it added Account Type after Allow Reconciliation. So now if I click on Undefined, I'm going to have a subgrouping in there of the other accounts that are undefined as far as Allow Reconciliation goes, but are grouped into their account types. And I can always expand the different levels of those. I'm going to collapse all those levels just by manually clicking. I do want to point out that there's a button in the upper right hand corner here. If I hover over it, it says expand. If I click on that, it expands all the data into their groupings and subgroupings, however I had them. Now this button is also changed in direction. The arrows are pointing at each other. As I click on that, it collapses back down. One more thing before I leave my groupings. I can change the order of the grouping simply by unchecking and rechecking. Whatever's checked first takes precedence. So I'll leave account type checked, I'll uncheck Allow Reconciliation, and then I'll check that again. I'm looking for those features in that order. Group it by account type, then Allow Reconciliation. If I go to my current assets, none of these should be marked as Allow Reconciliation. Good, they're all undefined. My payable and receivable accounts should be true. Excellent, they're Allow Reconciliation type of accounts. Let's jump out of here and into another application. I'm going to go into the directory, your address book within 2020. We see there are 16 entries here. You still have options for grouping. They're a little different by default, and your custom group options have expanded greatly. I want to talk now about filters. Within your directory, we have several preset filters, and you can certainly add custom filters. Well, let's start off with some preset filters. Maybe I want to see those people and companies listed as customers. Click on that. There's my list of customers. Maybe I want to see customers and vendors. You can have entities in your directory that are neither. Maybe you want to see only vendors and only those vendors that are companies instead of persons. So that took somebody off the list. Let's see that the other way. Joe Estimator here is a person, not a company. If I click on that and I only want to see vendors that are persons, there's Joe Estimator. And while I'm doing that, it's building that list of filters up in the search bar. You can combine filtering and grouping. I'll show you that in a little bit. I'll remove one of those filters, but then I want to add a custom filter down the bottom. So I'm just going to start typing EXP. Oh, it took me to expense account. I hit my enter button and it says expense account contains. Well, I'm looking at my vendors. I have some default expense accounts. Let me see. I know my accounts pretty well. 5200 should be my subcontractor account. Oh, that's the default expense accounts for those contacts. My expense account contains 5200. Let me take that off and try that a little differently. You see it remains on the list temporarily. If I were to leave and return to the screen later, this last one wouldn't be here again. But while I'm working within it, it remembers it for the time being. I'm going to try to alter that a little bit. So I looked for the number the first time. Now I'm going to look for maybe the name of the account. It starts with subcontractor, so I'll just start typing that. I get the same result. And you see both of those are in the list. So I'll remove all my filters here. I'll put a new one on that I only want to see persons rather than companies. And then I want to add a group to that. I want to group this maybe by, let's see, company name entity. So I have 2 people for ABC Concrete, 3 for 2020 Construction Cloud, and a couple that are undefined. So we can stack up filters and groupings. All right, and you also see to the right side I do have my expand icon if I wanted to expand everything. But maybe I've done some filtering and grouping that have helped me navigate to a set of records that I want to report on. There's a checkbox here, and it kind of moves around. Generally it's to the left, but as I group things, it gets pushed to the right with the grouping heading staying to the left. If I check this box at the top, it'll mark all of those open lines with a check. If I open another group now, you see they are not checked. Well, what checking the boxes do for me, it gives me a couple of other options. One is to print, and another is an action button. The action button is very, very useful. I can export this list maybe to Excel. We have a couple of options, export to Excel and export to Excel flat. What that means is these are going to create nice spreadsheets for you containing the information seen on this screen. We can add columns to the screen that will get output to Excel. If you need more information on this screen, please get in touch with us. All right, so let's take a look at that. So if I go to Action and Export to Excel, I'll take the first option, and I'm going to do that because this has groupings in it. Pretty quickly generate that file, depending on the speed of my internet and how many records, and then it opens Excel for me as soon as I click on that. And it's showing me the information exactly as it was in the other screen. Here are those 3 records that I'd selected, not any others, just the 3 records with check marks. It shows me their group as a heading over here, and then whatever other information was shown in those columns. If I had chosen the flat option, it puts that grouping information at the beginning of every line. As a heavy user of Excel, I prefer this option. Just want to note, the export option at the top of the list is not what we're looking for when we want to send these to Excel. They're going to come out in a nice format with these options at the bottom. Let's talk a little more about the other options. I'm going to click on Archive. I want to archive these 3 contacts. I do that, and now they're off the list. They're gone. Even if I take off all my filters and grouping, we don't see Molly, we don't see Ron. Where'd they go, and how do we find them? Well, if we change our filters, we have an option here for Archive. We're only seeing the archived contacts now, so let's bring them back. Let's check off the boxes for those, go to Action, and unarchive those. Now they disappeared from the archive filter. By default, we hide the archived information, and we see Molly and Ron are back on the list. Another option that's important to get to right now is favorites. I'm going to say let's group this by country and filter by companies. So I only want to see companies, and I want to see what countries they're grouped into. So in the United States, I have 5 different companies. Maybe I'm going to use this filter and grouping combination somewhat regularly. I have the option to set it as a favorite. We have one option currently, Save Current Search. Let's just give it a name, Training. And we have a couple options below that. Share with other users. Do I want to make training a favorite available for other people? If I think it's a valuable filter for them, then sure, I'll do that. Or I can say use by default. Let's save that one and save. So it changes my filter to the word training and puts a little star next to it. So now let's jump quickly to a different application and back. Let's go to accounting and back to my directory. It remembered that. That is my default. We see it here as I left it. As other contacts get set up, they'll fall into these categories naturally, and I can see them. If I want to remove that, I can take that off. I can certainly set that again to say maybe group that by country, but I don't want any other filters on there. I'll save that current search, country. And maybe I don't want to change my default, I just want to have it in the list. So now under favorites, I can toggle between any of the favorites that I have saved or that have been shared with me. Okay, so enough with the grouping and filtering and favorites. Let me go into a record. I'll pick Joe Estimator here. You see there's a little icon for a photo there. Let's click Edit. Go back to the icon, hover over it. Now I get a little pencil icon and a trash can icon. If I wanted to get rid of this image, I can just hit the trash can. If I click this little pencil icon, it'll search my system for an image file. So maybe that's Joe's picture. You can also do that on other records. Maybe your list of products, you want to see what the product looks like. Equipment, employees, so use that where it makes sense. Let me save this record. We see at the bottom of the record, there's a tab for attachments with nothing in it. How do I create an attachment for a record? Almost any record in the system, whether it's, say, a project or an individual. If I edit this, attachments doesn't give me an option to create anything. Well, we do it by dragging and dropping. There's one little caveat to that, though. We will only have success dragging and dropping one or more files onto a record if the record's not actively being edited. So let's click Save first. Very important. Then we'll browse out into our system, have a little window open with the files that you want to bring into the project. So maybe I want to bring this one and this one. Using my Control key in this case to select multiple files, I'm using a Windows PC, and I can simply drag them towards the record. As I do that, it says drag and drop it here. So I have this large area with the dotted line around it. If I move outside that area, it's not going to work. It says drag it to the green box. So I don't want to put it in the attachment section here. I want to drop it right there. I let go of that. The records get saved into the system and stored up into the cloud. So now this contact has 2 attachments related to him. We see that at the top here. It says 2 attachments. And if we want to delete them, each one has a little trash can icon next to them. We can do that way. Maybe I'll take one of them out. Ask me, am I sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Let's do that. We still see it here until we refresh our screen, either by clicking the refresh button in our browser or going back to the main list and then coming back into it. So now one record here. If I want to preview that record, there's a little binocular icon to the right side of that attachment. Click that, it'll show me the job site. It did that by opening up another tab. If it doesn't do that for you, check to see if you have any pop-up blockers enabled that may be stopping the other tab from showing. I'll close that other tab and back to my record. If I want to download the attachment into my local system, I can click Attachments at the top. If I then click on the attachment name, it'll save another copy down to my local system. Please make a note that if you're attaching anything that might be sensitive, that you're aware that some others may have access to that in the system. One last but important thing before we leave this session. I'm going to edit something on Joe's record. If I then try to leave the record, I get a warning. The record's been modified, your changes will be discarded. Are you sure you want to leave the page? If I click OK, it's going to leave the page and not save the last change I made. If I click Cancel, it'll leave me right where I am, so then I can click Save if I want to do that. If I started making changes and realized, well, I don't want to do that, I can either go somewhere else or simply just discard those changes. Discarding is not deleting. I got the same message when I discarded, just warning me that I'm going to lose something, and that's okay. Thanks for your time today. Please be reminded that after logging into your 2020 system, 1, if in a multi-company environment, always be sure you are working within the correct company's data. 2, not all users have access to the same features and options. 3, your typical workflow may vary from what has been presented. Let us know what else you'd like to see in these tutorials, and as always, enjoy the day.